So today we are going to talk about cell formatting, and the worksheet that I gave you, we're going to use that. It's going to be basically a project that we're going to work on throughout the course as we make improvements, and you're going to see how you can make improvements to your worksheet, and we're going to add things to it each time. So today we're going to focus mainly on just a really bare bones worksheet, a budget, and we will do some cell formatting, and we will probably get into some basic formulas as well. So if you would open your worksheet, if it isn't already open, and I will explain how I have it organized. So I think I will share my screen so that you can see mine, which of course is the one that you have. Can everybody see my screen?
I lost you. Yeah, there we are. Okay, got it.
So as you can see, the sample family budget, and again, you can change these numbers. This is just something to work with. So the way I have it organized is I have a monthly income. And so I have an income from the job. I just put in a number 5,000. If you get some kind of government check like Social Security or whatever. So I put down 2 government checks, maybe a retirement from another job. A retirement could be your Social Security as well. And if you have any investment coming in. So I have put these figures down. The P time is for part-time. Probably don't need that, but in case you wanted to add that. So again, you can use these numbers, or you can put in numbers that are more real to you. Below that, you'll notice I have a year-end summary. This is just for convenience. You don't necessarily need something like this, but I also put it in here because we're going to use some of the functions that will give us the minimum, maximum, and average, that we can do a comparison. And below that, I have our income. Again, these are all projections, a projection of what our total income is going to be throughout the year, and also our total expenses. Okay. And below that, I just have a balance. So this is just putting in some numbers, and we're going to talk about how we can make the numbers look easier to read. And we're going to talk about how to do cell formatting. So one of the first things I want to point out when we're going to do cell formatting is where you're going to find the formats for cells. If you go on your ribbon and you see the option that says cell, or the group that says cells, insert, delete, and format on the right side, you will see a button that says format. Click on the drop down button and you'll see all the way down at the bottom an option that says format cells. So if you click on this particular button, you will get this dialog box. And this is how every cell can be formatted in various different tabs. So notice the number. The very first category says general, and it says that it has no specific number format. So it's just a general format. And they show a sample in here. Then you have a number format. When you click on the number format, you can have decimal places. You can increase or decrease your decimals. If you have, at least a 4-digit number and you want that comma in between it, you can use the thousand separator. And if you notice, well, you can't notice it yet, but notice underneath it, it says negative numbers. Sometimes people will have negative numbers and they want it to say negative, or some people like to see it in red.
Damn it.
And some people want to see it in parentheses, and some people want to see it in negative parentheses. So it's just a choice on what you want to do. So you've got currency. So it shows you what the various different currency values would look like. Accounting. Now the difference between currency and accounting is that currency, well, I'll show that later. The currency and accounting are pretty much the same. It's just the way it looks. If you're an accountant, they say accountants like everything lined up on the left, right? So currency is going to be more, I guess, pleasing to those who like things really lined up a certain way, and currency is just the way most of us would do it. Now, date format, and I remember, I think, what was it that said that they want to know why? I think it was Mary, in fact, when you type in a particular date and it shows it differently than you typed it in. This is where all that comes into play. So notice all the different date formats you can use. You can have the day of the week and the month, and you could have 3/14. You can even have what some people like to call military, where the 14 March, where they have the day. So you have all, if you type in a date and it follows any of these formats. So if you type in one thing and it shows up differently, if you look in your numbers group right above, can everybody see my pointer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right now it says general. If the date format is different than what you expect, you would see date up here, and you would have to just change the date format by going into the format cells and choose the format that you wanted to display. Okay. Also time. Beneath that is how your numbers and time can look. You might notice mine actually is in international. I use the 24-hour clock. So that's why you'll see 13:30 instead of just 1:30, but notice you see both. So again, you have options. People have different ways they want to express their time. You have percentage. And again, you just tell it the decimal, you know, how many decimals you want. You've got fractions. You've got scientific with, again, decimals. Text. Special for things like zip codes and phone numbers and social security numbers. So you can have it, it basically creates a mask that when you type in the number, it puts it in the way that you want. So if you want 524-11-1234, it'll have the dashes in there. And custom is for everything else. Now this one looks kind of weird, but the zeros are numbers, and the pound signs will indicate the placement of numbers and things. So you can do a lot of different formats. And you'll see that you can change your formats. I'm not going to go all into that, but I just want you to see that you do have a lot of options on how you want numbers to look in your worksheet. Okay. The next tab is alignment. Now, alignment, as I pointed out to you before, that when you type in a number, by default, it's going to be to the left of the cell. When you type text, it's going to be to the right of the cell. I'm sorry, it's just the opposite. Text is going to be to the right. Numbers are going to be to the right, text is going to be to the left. So if you type in a number and it's lining up on the left of the cell, then it's not considered a number, it's considered text. Now you have different options here, whether you want it centered, indented, full justified. Over here, for those of you who might want to know how to make your labels, sometimes the label is long and you don't want a very wide cell, so you want to tilt it a bit. That's what this is here. In fact, if I scroll down, that's how this happened. Okay. So for example, if I go to alignment and I want to change it from pointing down to pointing up, it's going to look, well, that didn't look really well, but I wasn't expecting it to do that. It's because of how I have it oriented, the width of the cell, but I'm going to undo that. My favorite to undo. Oops, there we go. So you can change it to be at an angle down, an angle up, upside down. You can have it vertical. And sometimes when you have cells like this, You might want monthly income to be vertical on the left side, or you might want it in the center. You might want to point it down. So that's when people use the angles like that. The shortcut to get to the format cells dialog box is to hold down the control key and press the number 1. Okay. And notice down here, you can change the angle. This says 45 degrees. I can change it to something different. Well, that's what this is. So you have a horizontal alignment and you have a vertical alignment. And so the vertical alignment, top, center, bottom, etc. You have a horizontal alignment. And we'll talk about this center across selection later. And then we have wrap text, shrink to fit. These are just some of the options. This is just, again, when we type text, a label, sometimes we want it to look a very specific way. So here are your options. In format cells, if you're in a cell and you want the content of the cell to be formatted a certain way, these are the tabs you go to. Font, of course, is like what you would see in Word, whether it's bold, what kind of font style you want, bold, italic, the size, underline, color, things of that nature. And there's always a preview here, you know, what it looks like, strike through or superscript. Superscript means the center line here is going to be raised above that center line. Subscript means it's going to be below that line. Okay. Border, you want your cell bordered, you have these options here, and it'll show you again what the border is going to look like if you want to change the style of it. Now look, I clicked on a thicker style. And this is something you need to understand. When you click a style and it doesn't show here, that means it won't show on your worksheet until you actually tell it to. So you might have to, you know, click inside the preview to make sure it takes what you select. If I want color, again, I'm gonna, it's probably not a good color. Let's try a color that you can really see. Okay, so the preview, if I want it outlined, I want it just inside, so. Okay. Fill means you want the cell colored a certain way. Right now, let me see, where is my cursor right now? I'm gonna just click this cell. Okay, so if I want a color, and it's gonna give me a sample again, there are fill effects where you might want it shaded, you might want a pattern, you might want 2 colors. I want color 1 to be a different color. It's going to look something like that. So you can get really fancy. I'm just showing you where they are. You can play around with these things. You'd be surprised how you can get all caught up in how to make your worksheets look pretty depending on what you're doing. And protection is if you don't want people to change the content of your cell, you can lock them. Again, I'll get into that later. I'm just showing you the various different options you have in your worksheet as far as cell formats are concerned. Are there any questions about what I've gone over so far? Did I teach you anything you didn't know?
Everything you taught.
Yes,
Yes.
I've been
Yes,
doing
yes,
this the
yes.
hard way. Thank you.
Okay.
I
All
have a
right.
question.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say that instead of the Cabroli, or however you say that, I want everything to be in a different format, like Arial or whatever it's called on there.
Good question.
Can I make the computer, I know I can, I don't know how I did it because years ago I learned that, but I can make that my print will always come up in that script.
Excuse me. Yes, you can do that by setting the default. The default has certain settings, and if you want to change the default, you'd have to go into your options. I've never really done it with Excel, but there is an option. You click on File and go all the way down to the bottom on the left side where it says Options. And so there would be, let's see if I remember where it is. I believe it would be under general interface, because I go in here, here you go, body font. You can choose various different fonts.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And I change mine, I changed the size to 26 so that I can make sure that my formula bar is bigger than the rest, because I had to then shrink the cells so that they look normal, but I want you to pay attention to what's up here. So I made it bigger so you don't ignore it. So yeah, you can set your options to do just about anything you want. And again, you have a lot of different fonts. So if I want to see, if I want everything to look a certain way, I would hold down my control button and the letter A to select the entire worksheet. And then if I want to change my font, I can hover and get an idea what it's going to look like and change it that way. I don't, typically I just use the default, but you have that option. And Control A, or remember, we talked about this little button here in the upper left-hand corner, that does the same thing. So one thing about Office things, there's usually 3 ways to do just about anything. One way is to use your ribbon, if you see the option on the ribbon. The second way would be your mouse, gives you options. And the third way is to learn shortcut keys, like Control 1 to open the dialog box, Control A to select everything. So you can go into your search up here and ask for shortcuts, Excel shortcuts, and it'll give you a whole list of shortcuts. So it's up to you, whatever your particular methodology, whatever your preference is, you don't have to do things just one way. You have several ways: keyboard, mouse, shortcut keys, and ribbon. Okay. Any other questions?
How did you make that formula bar bigger?
I went into File, Options, and I went to down here where it says when creating a new workbook. The font size was much smaller. I think it was something like 18.
Oh, I see.
I wanted it to be bigger because if I reduce, you see how the cells are smaller, but this didn't change. And I did that because I want people to focus on what's up here. People oftentimes just focus on the cells and they don't realize maybe they're manipulating a formula when they really want to manipulate a number, or just the opposite. Because what you see in here is what's actually in the cell. Notice that this shows 1500. Notice in the cell it shows 1500 with the comma. Okay. Sometimes you'll see a function. If you click in cell D10, you'll see that it's not 5500 in there. It's actually the result of a function, which is sum the range D6 through and including D9. So that becomes important sometimes when you want to manipulate and copy things. Sometimes you want to just copy numbers and not functions. And sometimes you want to copy only functions and not numbers. So there's a lot of different reasons why you need to know what's in the cell. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some formulas. So if you scroll down to where it says income and expenses, and if you click in cell C23, you'll notice that in the formula bar, it says something that looks kind of strange. It says $D, $5. Now, I did this on purpose because I want to copy this. Let me just do this. Let me just take all this out. So I want to see 5,000 throughout the year. And the reason why I don't want the number to change, because right now, if I just, let me back up. Let me just type 5,000 in there. So if I wanted to copy this 5,000 from January to December using my autofill handle, this is what's going to happen.
Okay.
But I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain why I did this. Let me undo. The $D and the $5 is what we call an absolute cell reference. An absolute cell reference is always going to refer to this cell. And if I don't do that, it's going to copy over now. So let me give you a better
Okay,
example.
you're losing me.
Let me give you a better example. I am going to, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to create a sheet and I'm going to type the number 10. Let me make sure that I have it big enough so everybody can see it. Okay. 10, whoops, what happened here? Okay, 10.
I'm not muted.
And 30. Okay. And I'm going to click in this cell here, and this might answer somebody else's question about, I can't remember what the question was, but I'm going to type in here equals A1. Now notice I typed equals A1. This actually is a formula and it's displaying 10. Now equals A1 is telling Excel display the value found in cell A1. Okay. When I move it over one more column, it's going to say 20 because now it says display the value in B1. This is called relative cell references because it's relative to the location of the cell. So if I move over again, I'm located in cell C3, but I want the value displayed from C1. Does that make sense? Maybe not. This is called relative cell referencing. Now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to want it to look at cell 1 no matter where I'm located in the worksheet, whether I'm located in A1 or B1 or Z23, I want it to always display the value in cell A1. To do that, I have to put in those dollar signs. It's called absolute cell referencing. So I would have to go $A, and it makes no difference whether it's capitalized or not, and $1. So now look what happens when I move it across. It's always looking in cell A1, whether I copy it up, down, over, no matter where I'm located. Right now I'm located in cell G6, but it's showing me the value in A1. Okay. That's an absolute cell reference. Now, the quickest way to do an absolute cell reference, you don't have to type in the $. I'm going to delete this for a second. And I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to click on, click on A1, and I'm going to press the F4 function key. Keep forgetting, there you go. Press the F4 function key, it automatically changes your relative cell reference to an absolute cell reference. Now, sometimes, because the function keys used to have a very specific function, and now we've added so many more functions, you might have to press more than just F4. You might have to press either your FN key or your Windows key or some kind of combination. I had to press my Windows key to do that.
You have to do that too.
Yeah, the laptops, oftentimes you'll have to press the FN plus the F4 function key, which is above your numbers row. Now, if I hold down if I press the F4 function key a second time, why is it- Mine is the Windows F4. Okay, if I press Windows F4 a second time, notice now it says $1. The $sign is in front of the reference you want to stand still. So now if I move it across, column A will remain steady, but if I move other rows, column A will change, but the row won't. So sometimes you want only one part of your cell reference to remain fixed and everything else to move. And if I hold down function F4 again, now it's just the opposite. Now it's the column that will remain fixed, but the row will change up and down. And if I do it one more time, it's going to make it, whoops. It's going to go back to relative. So you have these keys so you don't have to worry about typing it in. So it goes from relative, absolute, mixed, mixed, relative. You'll see how that works later. I'm just letting you know that I did it on purpose on my sheet, and you'll see why.
Question.
Yes.
You're in column A, but what if you want the value that is in column B, row 2, B row 1? Can you put that in column A? In other words, instead of putting A, could you put B, $2 $2 or something like that?
I'm not quite understanding what you are asking. Let me just show you what happens.
Column in instead of A.
Wherever you put the $sign, think of the absolute cell reference. The absolute cell reference, which was this one. And so that looks like. Come on.
But if you want 20 in starting in row 5 in column A, can you use the B? Does that explain it better?
I understand that.
If you want 20 to be in column A,
Yeah,
You
I
want-
want,
That function to go there.
yeah, I want that 20 instead of in column A, instead of A10, I want it to be B20 in column A. Can that be done?
if it can. So let me show you what mixed will do. So I'm going to again say equals A1, and this time I'm going to have a mixed cell reference. Whoops. So now when I copy it over, so notice when I moved it over, column A, so it is looking in column D and is staying in row 1. Column D is constantly moving, but row 1 isn't. So if I move this down, and if I do it here, because it's still in row 1 is fixed, but it's in column B. So wherever the $sign is, that's what's not going to move, because people will use relative cell referencing and absolute cell referencing when they're copying formulas using their fill handle. So if they don't want something to move from a particular position, like whatever number is in column B, I don't mind column C, D, and E. I don't mind that shifting, but I don't want it to go away from row 1.
Okay.
And if I did the opposite, instead of $1, I want it to go, wish this thing would stop doing that for me. Sometimes the features here are annoying. It's not,
Whatever is in column A1, unless you change the row and you go $, say 10, and you put a different figure in it, it's always going to pick up whatever in that column A1.
if it's absolute, it will always go to A1 because it's saying do not move. When you move your cell references, when you're moving your formula, you don't want it to, that part of the formula you do not want to move. When it's relative, wherever you drag it, it's going to make the adjustment. If I drag it to B1, then the formula is going to change to B1. When I drag it to C1, the formula is going to change to C1. So whatever it finds in that particular cell is going to make the adjustment. But when you put a $ in front of something, especially when you put a $ in front of the A and the 1, or the column and the row, no matter where you move it, it's not going to change. It's going to remain fixed. So what you don't want to remain fixed, you don't put a $ in front of. What you do want to remain fixed, you put a $sign in front of it. That's why they call it mixed, but this one's absolute. And I'm going to show you a better way of doing this later. Right now, I just wanted to point it out. When I give you the example, you'll see a lot easier. You'll understand a lot better. I'm just going an overview right now. I hope I didn't confuse you. Looks like I confused you.
No, no.
No? Okay. All right. Yes.
Okay, so let's go down to A11
Okay.
and put a different value in that.
Okay. Well,
Put 20 in it.
in A11. Okay. That's a value.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you want that to continue down for the next 5 rows. So you would go
Well, if I just wanted this, I can just use my autofill handle and it will do that.
okay. And that's probably the best way of doing that if you're changing figures, say have it 5 of 10 and 5 of 20 and 5 of 30 in that first row.
You want it 5 of 10, 20, and 30. I would go 10, 20, and 30, and then I would select these 3 rows. And then I would copy down because you can see that there's an interval of 10 between these 3.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, okay. Thank you.
That's just autofill. I was talking about a formula.
Right,
So this is a formula. This is a value. Because a value is just a number.
right.
But a formula, you're telling it where to find a value. So I'm saying, I want you to find this value, no matter where my location is, I want to see the value in this cell, always. So if I just wanted to see just equals A10, then I can just say equals A10, I mean A1, and it's just going to see the value of A1. But if I want to copy this formula horizontally or vertically, and I want it to always look over here, no matter where I copy it, that's when I have to make it look like this. Okay. So let's talk about creating formulas. So I'm just going to go down here. So when we create a formula, we use the operators plus and minus and asterisk for multiplication and slash for division. My slash go. There's acting word slash. Oh. Well, I guess that's weird. I don't know why it's not showing. So if I want to do, let's say I want to add these three numbers. If I want, let me just move these numbers over here. So I want to add these numbers. I am going to go to what I call the destination cell, where I want the result to display. I'm going to type the equals sign. And if I'm going to do a simple addition, I'm going to say, okay, add the value in D20 plus the value in D21 plus the value in D22 and plus the value in D23 and press enter. So this is what I wanted to do. I'm telling it in cell D24, I want you to add the value in D20 to the value in D21 to the value in D22 to the value in D23 and display the result in D24. This is why I say with Excel, you just tell it where to find the numbers and what to do with them. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So simple mathematical equations, you can do that. Now there's something else that's really interesting. I'm going to type the number 2 and the number 3 and the number 4. Now, whoops. I'm now going to click in G27 equals D27 plus D27 times F27. Okay. Can anybody guess what the number is going to be? 2 plus 3 plus 4.
Oh, well, I would have to do that in my head. 4 is 20.
5 times 4.
Now you might think, whoa, why did it say 14?
Yeah.
Because we said 2 plus 3, it's
Oh, 2
5,
plus-
times 4 is 20, right?
Mhm.
But now going back to your days of algebra, how many people remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally? Or PEMDAS? Okay.
Foreign language.
This goes back to algebra. You might have to really go way back into the depths of your brain, but PEMDAS, and I'll just type it in here. Oops. I'll start here. Okay, P. Oh, Mary Green somehow disappeared. Okay. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Or another way of putting it is order of precedence. Have you heard of order of precedence? You remember order of precedence? So the P is what's in parentheses first. The E is exponents. The M is multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, whoops, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. That's the order of precedence. So that means that what Excel did in this particular equation is it did the multiplication first. So it did 3 times 4, which is 12. Then it added 2 and it got 14.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, so it, mm,
So if I wanted to be 20, I would have to tell it to I would have to put parentheses. If I wanted to do the 2 plus 3 first, I'd put parentheses around the 2 plus 3.
Oh, like in algebra. Okay, I now
Yes.
understand.
Okay.
Okay.
And then it's going to give me 20.
Okay.
So I typically like to just, if I'm doing mixed, operators, and how we think, we're thinking 2 plus 3 times 4. That's how we're thinking. But Excel is going to need to know that we want 2 plus 3 first. So you just, whatever you wanted to do first, put it in parentheses if you're using mixed operators. Now I could have said 3 times 4 plus 2. If I had put it in that order, 3 plus 4, 3 times 4, 3, what was it? 2 times 3. What did I just say? Yeah, 2 plus 3. If I wanted to do that first, if I wanted to do the 3 times 4 to get the 12, I could put 3 times 4, and then let me just do it that way. So let's just move this. I wouldn't need the operators if I had it that way. Let's just take this out. If I wanted,
So the F27 comes up there automatically. Now you didn't, now it's changed.
yeah, I'm changing it because I wanted this to be done first. Forgot what I just did. Forget it. You understand what we did. What we wanted to do first. We took this, we wanted to add first, not multiply first. So we put it in parentheses. And then we did the multiplication. So if you happen to put together a formula and you notice it doesn't come out right, check your order of precedence. Or always put what you wanted to do first in parentheses. Only if you're doing mixed operators. If I'm doing all addition, I wouldn't need to do that, of course. Okay.
But you always put the equal sign there.
Anytime you want it to calculate, you must put an equal sign. Otherwise, it's just going to look at it as a value.
Okay.
Okay. All right. As you notice that when I create a function, I always, after I put my equal sign, I use my mouse and click on the cell that I wanted to find the number in. You can easily type in, if you want to type equals E27 plus F27, you can type that in there. You don't have to use the selection method, but I like to use the selection method because I know that I don't type numbers and letters very well. I'm bound to make a mistake. And if you're in the early part, how did I get 11?
3, 4, 7, 9. Oh, 7. I don't know.
Oh, that's because I didn't have the parentheses, that's why. Again.
3 and 4 is 7 times 2 is 14.
27.
But how did you get 11? Because if you add 3 and 4 together, that's 7 times 2 is 14.
Uh,
So it's doing multiplication of the 2 times 4 first, 8 plus 3. Okay, got it. Never mind. I'll
Yeah.
shut up.
yeah.
I forget I'm not muted.
Okay. Formulas, I just wanted to point out to understand about the order of precedence. So that if you have mixed operators, here's a plus and a multiplication, know that it's going to, if you don't have the parentheses, it's going to multiply first and then add. If that's not what you don't want it to do, then you need to tell it differently.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Okay, so let's go back to addition. Let's go back to these numbers here. So I added these 4 numbers, and you can imagine if you have a long string of numbers to add, that could be really time consuming, plus this, plus that, plus the other thing. Now, here's the difference between functions and formulas. The most common function that people use is the sum function, okay? So if I'm going to add more than 2 numbers, I'm going to use the sum function. So instead of putting it in this way, I'm going to use what they call auto sum, and that's on your ribbon, on your home tab. You'll find it on the right where it says editing. It's got the Greek symbol here, sigma. You click on the button, and it's going to automatically look around the location of the cell, and it sees a range of numbers. It's going to assume that that's what you want it to do. So in this particular case, it says, I see a range of numbers from D20 through and include D23. I'm assuming you want me to add all those numbers, and I'm going to display the result in D24. Okay. That's the same thing that I did here, except it's so much easier. And instead of saying equals this plus this plus this plus this, the same result, but this is so much easier.
Yeah.
Now you don't even have to be near. I can take this function and I can move it over here. I'm going to get the same number because I'm telling it where to find the numbers. I don't have to necessarily be near the string of numbers. I'm telling it, in this case, I want you to add the values found in this range from D20 through D23. A lot of people, some people will do it this way. They'll select and one blank cell underneath and do the auto function, or they do like I do. I simply start with my destination cell, click on the function. So whichever method, again, is not just one way to do something, whatever makes sense to you.
Tell us what happens if you take out one of those numbers and you try an auto sum.
If I take out this number, let's say I take this number out, it's going to make the adjustment. Even though the function hasn't really changed, this has a value of 0. I included this range. It's part of the range, but this doesn't have any number in it. So it's adding the numbers that it sees in here, and 0 is a value of 0. So now typically I like to be very exact. I don't like to have blank cells, you know. If I don't have to, I would just drag this up. Press that, take that out of there so we don't get confused. Okay, so now it says D20 to D23, not D20 to D24.
But you put, Gina, but you could have put a 0 there without dragging the cell up, could you?
Yeah, I could put a 0 in there.
Okay, all right, got it, okay.
I have found that in a column of numbers, I use the auto sum a lot. and I'll go down at the bottom and hit auto sum. But I have found that if I don't have a 0 in there, sometimes it doesn't auto sum. It gives me a partial, or it won't give me a sum at all.
You might want to check and see if there's some kind of formatting in that blank cell that preventing it from doing that.
Okay,
Because if it, I can't imagine why it would do that, but I don't particularly like to, if I have a bunch of numbers, it depends on how it's formatted. Sometimes it'll be just a dash. Sometimes it'll be blank, but if it does not see a value in there, it'll assume it's 0.
Gina again.
Yes,
Eddie said she went to the bottom and you went up to the top. You went, and so when she said she went to the bottom, where did she go?
what do you mean?
I
you
She
went
said-
said she went to the bottom when she was adding. She said sometimes she would put the 0 in and she would get a subset. Did you say you go to the bottom, Edie?
I would go to the bottom of the column. If I was taking D1 through D20 and adding those up, I would just hit a row behind by my last entry and hit auto sum, and it would give me an auto rather.
I got it. Okay, okay.
But like I said, if you take out that 50 in there and you don't put a 0 in column D, if you take out the 50 and let's see how it adds it up.
Well, look what I did here. I told it to add the values of D17 through D25, and I only had these numbers in here. It still gave me 150
Okay,
because it's
Right.
reading blank cells as 0.
okay.
Yeah,
Whether
that's
I put it-
clear.
Yeah,
That's clear. Good. Okay.
okay. All right. Now, every function has a very particular, what they call syntax. So notice that the function starts with some kind of word or letters, sum. And in parentheses, you're telling it what to do. So sum says, I want you to add, and Excel says, okay, what do you want me to add? Tell me where these values are. So because it's a range of adjacent cells, I put in the range D17 through D25. Not every function has this particular syntax. They all have a different syntax. So to find where all the functions are, if you go to your formula tab and click on it, you'll see a functions library. There are over 350 functions in Excel. And they're organized in groups. You'll see financial functions, logical functions, text functions, date and time, lookup and reference, math and trig, and some other kinds, statistical. Okay, so again, you don't need to know what all these functions do. The ones that you're going to use, you'll figure out how to use them. So some of the most common ones, if you go back to your home tab and the auto sum function, you'll see there's a little drop down arrow. If you click on that, these are what they call some common statistical functions: average, count, minimum, maximum. Okay, they all have the same syntax. So if I clicked here and I wanted to change the function from a sum to average,
Yeah.
okay, it's saying, okay, I see these numbers above. Again, it always looks around its location. I happen to be in D26, it's looking around D26, and I say, okay, I see a range, in D20 to D25, and you want that average. So go ahead and click enter, and it's telling you that's the average. Now, if we were to do the mathematical function, how would we do this if we wanted the not function, but the mathematical formula? The mathematical formula would be what? Equals
Average?
40 plus 50 plus 60 divided by 4, right?
Well,
3.
But again,
3, wouldn't it?
well, if I'm, okay, yeah, it would be 3, you're right. But now, remember, again, we've got mixed operators. So what is it going to do first if I don't put parentheses around what I wanted to do? It's going to do
Division.
E23 divided by 3, and then it's going to add those other 3 numbers. So I would have to tell it, I want you to add first these numbers,
And then divide.
then divide.
Okay.
And let's see. And what it did, wait a minute, what happened? Oh,
You have to go back up there.
You don't need E23, because E23 is where your total's going to be. So you just need to add E20 through E22 in parentheses, right?
right.
Well,
Yeah,
Right,
23,
right, yeah.
23.
right,
Then
This
divide it by 3.
then divided by 3. Yeah,
Cute.
What is, because it's a, let me see what I have. in the Format. That's kind of weird that it went to 0. Usually it'll go to 0 if it's a fraction, a decimal fraction. And I don't know why it's doing that. 20 plus 21 plus 22 divided by,
There's nothing in column E. If you did D,
going D.
that's
That's
right, because
right.
I was using relative cell references. Boy, this is definitely a Monday.
We're using D.
Good
Yes.
catch, good catch.
Good catch. Now that's I'm glad you caught that. I didn't do that on purpose, by the way, but one of the things about Excel is when things don't look right, what you did do is look up in the formula bar and see where it's pointing. And she noticed that it's pointing in column E instead of column D. So if I make this D and this D and this D,
It's 50. That's true. Yeah. That's true.
Be right, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
so my point is that a lot of times people will look at the result and they wonder why it's not right. It's because it's not pointing in the right direction, which is nice that you will always find out what is going wrong by looking at where is it pointing? What is it looking at? Okay. Let's see. So, let's go back to our budget sheet. And let's look at figuring out the total income average and minimum maximum of these columns here. So for total income, if I want to do an auto sum, I'm going to, because it's a blank cell, when I click on auto sum here, notice it just says equals sum and empty parentheses. Because it doesn't see any numbers around it. So I'm saying, okay, I know what to do, but where do you want me to get these values from? That's why I put them down here. Okay, let me just cancel this for a second. So I realized that I had put the absolute cell reference here for, this was from this worksheet. I didn't really need to do that. So I'm going to just autofill because it is looking at D5. Okay, so I'm going to tell it I want to sum, and I'm going to tell it where to find the values, which is going to be, what is this, C23 through and including N23. And if I press enter, most of you could have done that in your head anyway, but. So we see the value of 60,000 here, but we notice that this is the result of a formula, of a function. Okay,
Isn't
Now-
that that's a formula?
a function is a pre-formatted formula. And
Okay.
functions always start with a word or something.
Okay.
Functions always start with a word. If you look at the formula bar and look at all these various different functions, you see that they start with something that looks like words. You don't just see an equal sign. A formula will always, I don't have any formulas in here right now, but so here's our function. Now, because I know that the monthly average, minimum, and maximum are all going to be in the same range, this is a shortcut. You don't have to do it this way, but I'm actually going to use my autofill handle and I'm going to drag it down. It's all going to basically is giving me a sum, but I want this one to say average. So I'm going to select it and type in the word average. Which we all can see would be the average anyway.
Okay, why did it come up if your monthly income is 5,000 and it's 6,000 for the year? How did it give 5,500 for your average?
Actually, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to add the other income. So let me delete that. I forgot to add because I want the monthly income, which is the 5,000 from the job, and I did not include the 5,500 from the other areas. So if you want to know how I got the 5,500, notice that I summed D6 through D9. And so what I should be adding is the 5,000 and the 5,500. So that's what I put here. So to total these two numbers, I'm going to equal C23 plus C24. As I said, if you're going to add more than two numbers, you should use the function. That's how I feel. It's not locked in stone. You can use the function if you wanted to, but I find it better just to use, because I might want to change one of these values and I don't want to have to redo the formula. So here's the real total, because it said total income. So the total income, so let me just delete all this because it's all wrong right now. So my total income is going to be, that's my home tab. Actually, under formula, there's also an auto sum. So my total is going to be the range of, I guess I have to first copy this all the way over. I use my autofill. So my total is going to be the range of C25 through N25. That makes sense. January, typically, I'll be honest with you, I rarely talk in cell references. I talk in labels. So when I'm doing this, I'm saying, okay, the total is going to be adding the total from January through December. And I'm just moving my mouse across the range that contains that, but I don't usually talk in cell references. I talk in English.
Hmm.
So for me, I'm saying, okay, I want to know what's my monthly total salary from January to December. And I'm just clicking on the cells that has that information in it. Okay. So now if I want to know the average, minimum, and maximum, I'm going to copy this down. And the reason why it's looking different is because the range is changing. So it's looking at, instead of C25, is going down to C26, and look at what's in C26. See the numbers different? You were asking why the numbers changed. It's because when I did that, I was moving down. So when I moved down, when I go down to C27, when I go down to, what is this, F15, it is looking at C27, which now is down here with the food area. Okay. You see why sometimes just copying down doesn't necessarily give you the right value. You have to pay attention to what range you're telling it to go. Okay, so let's do this. I wanted you to see that, and I forgot to. So this is where you would use your absolute cell referencing.
Okay,
Okay, so since I wanted to look at just this range, I wanted to look at the range. I'm going to click here by C25. I'm going to press my function F4 key. Actually, let me back up. I'm going to select the entire range. I'm going to select the C25 through N25, that range, and then put in my F4 function key. So when I copy down now, it's not going to drop down to the next row. It will stay on C25 through N25. Okay, so now if I copy it down, it's all going to say the same. That's because we're telling it to add every single time, but I want to change in this cell for the monthly average. I'm going to change sum to average. I'm going to type in the word average, all caps.
okay,
Okay, when I want to go to minimum,
okay,
that cell, and I'm going to change sum to min.
Okay.
And when I go to maximum, I'm going to change that to maximum, MAX.
that would be the same, yeah.
I put these numbers so that you can easily see that they're right. But what you should notice is that you don't have to do a lot of redoing the same formulas over and over again manually. You can do some shortcuts. That's because these particular, what's the word I'm looking for? These particular functions here all have the same syntax. And since we're doing the same range, we just have to put in which function we want: sum, average, minimum, and maximum. Naturally, the minimum takes a range of cells and it finds the minimum value in that range. Now, if I took a number, let's say I changed this number to something different. Let's say make this one 2,500. Notice how it automatically made the adjustment.
Oh,
The nice thing about using relative cell referencing is that, ranges, not relative, but ranges is that when you have input and output, the input are the numbers here. But if something changes, let's say for some reason we found out that, I'm going to get, say my salary is going to go up next year. Instead of 5,000, it's going to be 7,500. Up here in the input, the numbers that can change, but the output will adjust. So now look how much my total income is.
mhm.
I don't have to go back and redo the function or the formula, because this is input. This can change, but the values can change, but the actual calculation is not going to be any different. It's still adding the numbers in that range.
Okay.
So I could have said, I could have put the number 5,000 in there if I had done that, typed in the number 5,000 instead of the location of the value of 5,000. I'd have to redo everything, wouldn't I? But let's go to the total expenses. So we're going to click in cell F17. I'm going to go to the auto sum function. Now notice it automatically sees a range of numbers above its location. I know that's not the range that I wanted to use. So I'm simply going to point to the range I want, which is going to be, oh, I haven't put any totals in yet. Oh, I forgot. Let's put in totals here. So again, I like to start in my destination cell.
26.
Yes, C37. I'm going to click on the auto sum button, which, okay, I'm gonna go back to my home. Click auto sum, and again, it says I just see one number. And I wanted to add the value in the range of C26 through and including C36. Even though I have 2 blank cells, I know they have a value of 0, and I'm going to press the enter key. I want to do the same thing from January to December. So here's the formula. I'm going to use my autofill. I'm going to drag it January through December. I do not have to type in these new ranges because they're adjacent to each other and all the values are in the same, location. So it's really easy to use my autofill. Now, some people I notice when they create their worksheets, they like to have spaces. They like to have a blank column between each and they'll narrow the column, but that's cluttering up your worksheet. You don't need it because then you're going to have little zeros in between. So when you're organizing your worksheet, especially if you're doing things in this kind of format, it's easier. You just have to put in one formula using relative cell references, and then you can use autofill all the way across, up and down. You can see how it's really, really easy to create a worksheet. Now, again, if anything changes, let's say in loan number 2, that in June, my payment, let me say, I put a big, I don't know, extra principal or whatever, and now my payment is no longer $415. Let's say it's $200, and so for the rest of the year, it's going to be $200. I'm going to use my autofill, and the adjustments are made. Okay. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
And like I say, I'm
Yes.
putting this here. Okay, let's go back and add the total expenses, etc. So now I'm going to click in my total expenses. I'm going to click on auto sum. It's not pointing in the right direction. Now I'm going to point it in the right direction. I'm going to say, I want you to add the values in January through December. Okay, and when I press enter, it's telling me that my expenses are $55,725. And again, if I want to do the same way I did the total income, I'm going to say, okay, these ranges, I'm going to have the same range for minimum, average, and maximum. So I'm going to make this range absolute. And now I'm just going to copy this down, and then each cell that I want to change the function, this one's going to be average. This one's going to be minimum. Oops. Minimum. So this is going to be minimum. And this one's going to be maximum. So this tells me that my maximum monthly expenses is going to be 5,670. My minimum is 4,020. Now you guys can play around with these numbers all you want, just so you can see how it works. If you would like, you can add more rows for additional expenses. You can add more rows for, your income. I want you to play around with this so you can just get the feel of how this works. You can put in different numbers. I just put something in so that we had something to work with. But now that you have something to work with, I want you to really feel, how this works. Now I have one more formula to go into. Notice I have balance. I know how much money is coming in, and I know how much money is going out. And I want to know how much is left over. So what do you think I should put in cell C38?
Balance.
What?
Let's see.
Function.
I have no idea.
Function or formula?
Formula.
Okay, good. So I know how much money is coming in, and I want to know how much money is left after I take out expenses.
Mhm.
Okay, it's kind of like when you get your paycheck and then you see how much the government takes out, and how much is take-home pay. Kind of
Right.
that. So equals, and I'm going to start with January. So the total income for January is in cell C25.
25.
I'm going to subtract the total expenses in C37 and enter.
Do you have to put that in parentheses?
No, because it's just one operator.
Okay.
If I had mixed operators, if I was going to take this and then multiply or divide, or use an exponent, then I would have to do something different. But I'm just subtracting
Okay.
income, expenses,
You
and
got
again,
it.
then if I want to copy that January through December,
Wow, okay.
Wow.
And
so it's-
it says balance, but that is what that line is, 38 is actually what?
that's just a label. I could have called it net,
Netting.
cash flow,
Yeah, okay.
net income. I just put in a label of balance. So let's change that to
Net income.
yeah. Let's call that net income. So to edit a cell, simply click in the cell and then start typing. You don't have to delete anything, just start typing. So I'm going to say net income. And always press enter to let it know you finish editing.
But balance is an appropriate term too, since it's the difference between the total income and the total expenses, right?
It is. That's whatever label you want to use. I just chose balance. It doesn't make any difference it's what you want. It's what makes sense to you. Balance makes sense to me, so I put in balance. But net income, cash flow, net cash flow, whatever you want to put in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to show you one other thing that you might like to use. Again, this is formatting. I want you to notice. Uh-oh, my computer is dying here. Give it some more juice. What is that? Somebody stretching? Or are they on the rack? I don't know. Okay. I want you to notice on your ribbon, if you're on the home tab, there is a group called styles. There's three kinds of styles. There are cell styles, which I showed you earlier. There's format as table, and there's conditional formatting. Now, let's say I want at a glance to see when my cash flow falls below 8,500. So I want it to look differently so that it kind of stands out. So I want you to go to conditional formatting just to take a look at what that looks like. If you click on the drop down, you'll see that you have highlighting cell rules, top bottom rules, data bars, color bars, icon sets, and you can set your rules. So let's say I just want to highlight, first of all, I'm going to highlight the net income row. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go to conditional formatting, and I want it to highlight a cell that is less than a particular number. So I'm going to click on less than and say format cells that are less than, let's say 8,500. And I want it to be light red fill with dark red text. As you might notice, before you use it, you're already seeing which months of the year you're making less than 8,500. You want to change it to something, a different color. You have different colors that you can choose. But I like the first one. So I'm going to click OK. So at a glance, I can see at from June on down, I have a smaller amount of net income than I do the rest of the year. You can change that to anything you want, just to show you that you have different ways of letting things pop out. Or let's say I choose that same range, and let's say instead of less than, I'm going to change icon sets, and I'm going to maybe have a direction. This shows up and
Down, sideways.
yeah, I mean, I can tell it which direction to go, but I'm just showing you what it might look like.
Okay.
I typically, I'm just going to hit my undo. I typically like something like this.
Too busy the other way.
Yeah.
It's not too busy.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions over what we've gone through so far? Okay, let's make things a little more readable. Let's see. Well, so far everything is pretty readable as it is. Sometimes when you type in numbers, see, look at where I have in cell D9, it just says 1200. Notice it doesn't have the comma. Imagine if this didn't have commas, it would make it a little harder to read. So again, I want to click the cell above that says retire. And notice in my number group, it says number.
Yeah.
But when I click on D9, it says general. Okay. So if you want things to be consistent, in this case, all I have to do is tell it number. Oops, number. Now, typically, number does not give you the comma. Notice that it has 2 decimal points after it.
Yeah.
If I want to get rid of those decimal points, the button that says decrease decimals, I'm going to click that twice. And now if I click comma, it's going to put those decimals back, but it's going to put a comma between the 1 and the 2. Now, it doesn't look like it did. Remember what I said? What does this mean when you see the hashtags across here?
Too small.
Okay, it's not wide enough, so I'm just going to double click on D. And notice it's got the comma, but those decimals are back. So again, I'm just going to decrease the decimals. Now it looks like everything else.
It's not aligned.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. I noticed that earlier and I don't know why that does that, because that's the first time I've seen it do that. But let's do this. I'm going to show you the difference between a, let's see, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to select the cells just for demonstration purposes, the difference between an accounting format and a currency format. So if I go to the drop down from number and tell it currency and widen this column, you'll see that the dollar sign is right up against the number.
Yeah.
If I change that to accounting, I have to select it first, select it to affect it. If I go to accounting, notice how the dollar signs are all to the far left of the screen.
Oh. Why is that?
Well, because that's how accountants like numbers to look. They like things to the left. So it's really just a matter of preference. It might look a little neater this way as opposed to this, but that's just a preference.
Okay.
Okay. Now, looking at this, whether it's accounting or currency, to me, it's a little busy. So what I would do, I'm going to select this entire range up to the last, just before the last, and just going to have it comma. And I'm going to get rid of the extra decimals. And I'm just going to have the dollar sign at the end because I know this is dollars. I don't need to see it in every cell.
Okay.
Okay, here's a technicality. One of those numbers had 0.75, and you don't have that 0.75 in your total. So does that round up or does it just drop?
By default, Excel does round up, but you can tell it not to, or you can tell it how to. You can tell it to round up or down.
Just a technicality.
Which is important, especially in accounting. I know that banks keep track of all those decimals. We don't, and that's real money. And so they collect all that. But most of us may not pay attention to that, but depending on what profession you're in, those, decimals, whether it's 2 decimals or 6 decimals, that means something. And banks will, I understand, actually use that. Okay. So I can, like I said, I can change the format to make it easier to read by changing the number format. Since I have no trailing zeros, I tend to not want it cluttered up with dollar signs. And if everything's .00, I don't need to see those extra zeros. Again, this is a lot of dealing with preference. Okay. Any other questions? Have I overwhelmed you yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have a question.
Okay. I wasn't on when you did this, the income and the expensive January, February. How did you do that?
I'm sorry. Oh, you said income and expenses?
Yeah, and then the January, February. How did you do that? I wasn't.
Oh,
I couldn't see it on my
the
iPad.
tilted. Okay, you're talking about the tilted.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that would be under the cell formatting. I'm going to hold down the control key and press the number 1 to open up that dialog box and click on the alignment tab.
Oh, okay.
So notice to the far right where it talks about orientation.
Right.
So right now it's showing a 45-degree angle down. If I wanted it horizontal, I can click on it that way. It would look like this. If I want to change that, you might find I don't like it to look like that. So you're going to, whoops, come back here.
Oh, okay.
So you can have it go up and say, maybe you like it to look, okay, I need to select. One thing I want you to remember, select it to affect it. If you don't, nothing happens. You have to tell it, what do you want to affect? So now that I've got it selected and I want it to go up, it'll look like this.
Oh, okay.
So depending on what you want it to look like. And sometimes certain cells, you might want it to be tilted, you might want it to be vertical. So all of that is under Control+1, which is the format cells. It tells you again about the numbers, alignment, font style, border, if you want something filled. And this one did have a filling, I believe. Yes, this one had a filling of a kind of a grayish. If you want pattern style, you have patterns. So there's a lot of things you can do.
Cool. Oh, so you have to play with it. Okay.
Yeah, and the other place you'll find that is under the cells group. If you click on format, you'll see format cells all the way down at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. That sheet that we're looking at right now that you sent to us,
Uh-huh.
are we able to play with that? Because I didn't, all I got was a picture of it with nothing else. In other
Really?
words, yeah, I didn't, I don't know how to go into Excel to make it so I can play with it.
Okay, I will send you another copy of it because I sent it to the email. And
Right.
you should be able to, let me show you what it would look like on my email. Let's see.
Comes up budget lecture for senior .xlsx, but it does not give me the Excel page.
When you, let me just get to my email for a second. Let me go to,
No, it just gives you the budget.
Sorry to ask so many questions.
oh, I want you to. Can we find, I'm trying to find, okay. Oh, that's the calendar. What happened to the, where's the one that I sent you guys? Try that one. Ah, I can't find it. Here we go. Okay. There should be a down arrow on the attachment, and it will download depending on whether you're using Firefox or Chrome. With Chrome, it's going to say to open with Excel. If it's Chrome, you'll see it. It will save it down at the bottom left of your screen, and you click on that to open it. So when you download it, it's going to download it to your machine so that you can open it. This is Firefox, so when I click OK, it's supposed to open it up like this. Of course, it won't on my case because I already have it open.
Okay.
So try that and see if that works. Do you do have Excel on your computer, right?
Okay, I did. I got it. I got it
Okay.
now. Thank
Good.
you.
Okay, I'll close. Yeah. This is the right one, so, okay. Any other questions?
Linda had a question.
Yeah,
Linda?
I do, and I'm having trouble seeing everything. In the upper left-hand corner, columns A and B, you have, it's clear where you have monthly expenses. and all those cells are clear. So it's just an open space. You see what I mean here?
Up here where it says monthly income.
Yeah, so all that from 4 through 11 is empty space for A and B. How did you go like click on cell and delete those cells? Is that how you got rid of them?
Oh, okay. So you're not seeing the lines. So,
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
So again, that would be, if you click on border, you would have, where is it? Not border, but if you go down to, see more borders. I'm trying to remember, because I've had this for so long, I forgot exactly how I did it. Oh, I know. So let me just demonstrate here. Let's say I have this block and I want to merge this. So I have merged this so that instead of being 4 cells across, it's 1 cell across. And then I would type something like monthly. And come on. And if I remember correctly, like I said, it's been a while since I've done this, but I believe what I did is I wanted it, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Control Z. Why did it do that? I might have gone to, let's see, that would be vertical. And top, I'm sorry, I can't remember how I did this before. I know that this was merged into 1 cell, and then I just used the alignment to get it at the top. That's how I did it. Right now, I'm not doing it right, so I'm trying to figure out how I got it merged into just 1 cell. Merge cell. There we go. Okay. So I clicked those because there's several merges, merge and center, merge across, and I just said to merge all that cell. I selected the block, merge, and then when I type my text in there, in this case, it would be down here. And then I would say, well, I don't want it at the bottom, I want it at the top. So then I would go to the I would want it to be, this would be horizontal. Oh, here we go, vertical. So I want it top. And then it would look like that. Okay. You do lose it if you don't use it. I haven't done that in many, in quite a while. But as you play around with these things, that's why I want you to play around with them. And don't be afraid to do that. And one of the nice things, again, if you don't like what you did, my favorite key in the whole wide world is the undo key. So I could undo what I did and not worry about how I did it just to get it back to where it was before. Okay. Good question. Any other questions?
So
Don,
Gina,
have-
is there not a way then to align those numbers when they're off a digit?
Are you talking about this 1200 here? Is that the
I
one?
do run into that problem, yes.
I rarely run into that problem. I'm trying to, okay, so here's what I would do. I'm going to go and to my editing where it says clear and clear all. Okay. Then I'm going to type in 1200 again. And now it's lining up.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
sometimes there
Okay.
are codes that will be in a cell and you don't know what it is. And rather than try to figure out, just clear it out and type it again.
Thank you.
You guys have got really good questions. So, okay, I somehow must have cleared out my function here. So I'm going to put it back, my auto sum. That's not right. I know what I did wrong. So in this case, I'm going to, because this value here is from D6, so I'm going to say equals D5 plus D10.
10.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Like I said, since I know this was a lot to gather, I'm going to, if you have any other questions, I can answer them. Other than that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover for today. I encourage you to put in new numbers, put in numbers that make sense to you, add columns, or not necessarily columns, but you might want to add some rows. If you want to add a row, let's say you want to add another row of some other category of your expenses or something, click on the row number, right click and tell it to insert, and it's going to insert above the highlighted area. So then you can put in new numbers and whatever.
Another question. How did you get the red color expense and income green on the side?
Oh, good question. So all I did is I highlighted the cells I wanted, and I went into the little fill bucket over here under fill, and I chose a color. And I like to think of money coming in as green and money going out as red. So again, you have a choice on how you do that. And here, see here, what they did here, in case you're curious, is they took this cell. When they created this cell, it was much wider, and they narrowed it, and then they inverted, they went to the orientation. They tilted the text. Okay. And then they filled the cell, colored the cell. So when you see how narrow A is, A was probably more like this, and they just typed in, the label, and then they wanted it narrow, so they narrowed it so that it wouldn't take up so much room. And then it's just made it vertical.
And made it vertical, and then, okay, and the typing is the same to match that. Okay, good.
Have a lot of fun with formatting.
So, okay, so where did they type it?
So let me just demonstrate. Over here. This share screen thing keeps on getting in the way. Okay, so let's say this is the cell, and I'm just going to type my name in here. Whoops, not 12G. Okay, let's try this again. I can spell my name better than that.
I hope so.
Okay.
Okay,
So I'm going to widen it, and I want it to come down to this range. And like before, I'm going to merge, whoops, not merge across, just merge the cell so it's one cell. And then I'm going to make it vertical. Oh, that's not the vertical I want. Let's say I want this vertical. And now I want it, let's say, centered, and I want it I want it centered, let's see, horizontal, vertical. And then I want it narrow. And then I want it shaded. You see?
Yeah, oh, cool. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Have fun.
Thanks.
It's a lot of fun to put things together and to see what you can do. So like I said, make it your own. I'm going to tell you how to do certain things. You can put in whatever you want, and you'll find out that I'm going to show you some other functions, a little more complex functions next time. And yeah, like I said, I've given you really simple functions that we've been using, but I'll show you some other ones. I just don't want to completely overwhelm you. I think if you just right now play around with how you're going to format your worksheet, you can create a whole new blank worksheet and just have fun with creating your own stuff. Or you can, if you want to take this basic worksheet and play around with it more, but you don't want to mess up what you've done now, I guess I should mention this. I think I did before, but maybe I didn't. Let's copy this worksheet. So you can right click on it and tell it you want to copy it and move it to the end. And then you have, a copy of it, and then change the name. You can say it, play budget or something. And you don't need the number. That's just saying that I've made more than one copy. And then if you really want to have fun, color it. So if you color it so that it stands out, let's say I make it, yellow, so that when I'm on this sheet, I always have this sheet here that I know this is the one I can play around with, and you can do all kinds of things with it. All kinds of things with your play budget. When that sheet is active, you'll notice the color of the tab will dim. It'll get pale, but when it's inactive, it'll be brightly colored. So have fun with it, practice with it, see what it does, and don't worry about messing anything up. One of the best things, the way we learn, and I think I said in the beginning, don't be afraid to make a mistake. That's how we learn. That's the best way to learn. And it's not a mistake. As I said, it's lessons learned. So you'll see, okay, this works or that doesn't. Just, play around with it, have fun with it. That's how I learned, and that's how I got to where I am now. I just started playing around with things and until I started learning what they really did. Okay. I hope this has been very helpful to you. You might want to actually create your own personal, budget sheet and see where your money's going. Okay, I will see you next week. I have been recording this, I think. Haven't I been recording this? Yes.
Yeah.
I have been recording it, so I will make a few edits and then I will put it in YouTube, but it will not be public. It'll be private. So I'll send you the link so that you can have access to it.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Gina.
week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good week too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Good week, everyone. Stay safe.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.